Everybody, this is definitely much later than I was planning for tonight. I definitely needed to make dinner around the time that I was supposed to start streaming, so I knew that I would be delayed. But kind of a bunch of other things from today caught up. So the good news is I am starting to get some kind of, I'm really starting to get some kind of headway against a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do, which will translate into, I don't know, just more good stuff. Like I'll be a little more organized. I'll have hopefully a bit more time for broadcasting and things like that. But that does sometimes translate into some challenges just in terms of getting started today. So if I wanted to try and do there's a couple of good things just in terms of like overall life stuff. I will say that I sorry, I forgot to turn off my work phone. I don't think I'm going to get a call, but just in case. But I don't know. It's like there are the projects that I've been doing on the side, and I'm feeling a little bit better in terms of where those are all sitting. And I feel like I have much more realistic ideas in terms of when those things will conceivably be wrapped up. I just sat down and did a bunch of plans. So I didn't get started this morning the way that I wanted to. I slept through my alarm, and that meant that a few things that I wanted to do weren't very realistic. But I spent a lot of time planning today. So I know this doesn't sound all that exciting, but I actually just kind of sat down and figured that I would kind of go through my finances. Because the weird thing is that I had money set aside from my career before I went to career, so to speak. I don't know if I was in there long enough for it to count as a career. But yeah, I had some money set aside, and that sort of went into the schooling. And for the most part, I've been sort of, all of the debt that I took on has been paid back. But I don't consider that fully repaid until I've sort of rebuilt the savings that I had after that. I mean, obviously, time goes on. There's only so many years that I'll be earning an income. And so it would be good to live in such a way that I can restore the money that went into, my education. Essentially, I just don't want to treat, the part that came out of my savings as consumption. And it's absolutely fair to say that for me, an education really does count as consumption, right? Like I do like reading hard and interesting texts. So, the stuff that I spent going to, do a classics course or English, although English, some of those were prerequisites, those can be seen as consumption. But anyways, it's very aggressive. Actually, I did it on paper. It's very, very aggressive. I don't think I'm going to be having a lot of sort of free cash just in terms of like fun stuff. I have an idea in terms of how to like not go crazy with that. But one of the things I wanted to do alongside of that was actually just kind of listed out a number of the different things that I don't know, I like doing and don't cost money. And there's a lot of them, and it actually just occurred to me that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit just in terms of things that might even turn into stream content or something like that. So I don't know, it's one of these things. I don't feel like it's the sort of thing you need to do all the time, but there was sort of a bit of a stock taking that I took when I knew I was closing in on paying off the debt. And I don't feel like that's a bad thing for me to do now. A lot of it's a little bit more, as I am getting some worldly resources, where do I put that? And the good news is that there's a couple of plans where like there's a bunch of just different kind of government programs for things like savings. And there's basically like there's a limit to how much you can use, and I'm behind on that limit. So right now I treat it like there's no cap, but there's sort of built into that in sort of like 5-year periods times where a whole like so you have money, you hit a cap in one area and you put the money. It's like when you pay your highest debts first and then you go into the other ones. Like there's that momentum that builds up, and all of a sudden if I hit all of those caps, all of a sudden now I've got this extra discretionary income or whatever. And, then I can, I don't know, that's maybe when I'll sit down and do another stock taking. The biggest part of it wasn't so much the money stuff. It was really more about the, just trying to think how I can spend my time a little bit better. But that is often tied with money. Okay, now it just occurred to me, I actually have knocked Book of Hours off of my recent playlist, just because I installed a whole bunch of stuff. So sorry for the wait on getting started, especially after starting late, but we will be ready to go. So for those of you who don't know why I'm mentioning the Christmas stuff here, it's not just because it's the 1st of December, but Weather Factory is doing an advent calendar, and it will be both a Book of Hours in-game advent calendar, Books of the Memory Which Does Not Die, inscribed in 5 languages over the gate of Hush House. Go quietly. Book of Hours is a forgiving sort of game. If you're worried you might be stuck, there's usually another way. So, I know I was scrambling through. I can still never remember where this stuff is. So yeah, disable seasonal content, I'm assuming here is a reference to this is both the mystery mentioned in the patch notes, as well as what that thing I wasn't sure about was. Sorry, I'm just gonna take a sip of water. But yeah, so the best thing for me to do probably is just read the actual entry on the Advent calendar. So it is the 1st of December, and we are trying something new this year. Book of Hours seems such an obvious fit, so starting from today, we are running a 25-day Advent calendar of Hush House. Each day, we'll open a door consisting of treats in Book of Hours or the real world. You'll see it all on our socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we'll update our Advent mega blog daily with what's behind today's door. Most are tasty amuse-bouche, some are pretty major reveals. A few real-world treats will last only 24 hours. You will never miss anything in-game. Playing Book of Hours anytime in December will give you everything the calendar's revealed to date whenever in-game winter rolls around. So there's no stress if you're out having fun with friends, except, have a think about your life choices there. To start with today's door as an example, it reveals Door 1, Seasonal Art in Book of Hours. The next time you're playing Book of Hours and winter comes around, you'll notice some festive cheer sprinkled throughout Brankroog Village and Hush House. For anyone who wants to be left alone, like the weary detective in his Illustrated London News, there is an option to turn off seasonal art in the settings menu. More like this every day from now until Christmas Day. Check the Advent Mega blog if you're not sure of what today's gift is. We'll announce them every day at noon. That's it. Warmth, good cheer, and a glass of Chateau Reveline to you and yours. Merry Christmas, friend. So this is a good, maybe a good excuse, by the way. Just give me a second with the... Also enjoying some tea. But yeah, so I like this idea. I also remember there was a game from the person who helped with the UI in Cultist Simulator originally called Nowhere Prophet. That was eventually picked up by the publisher No More Robots. And it was kind of funny because the fellow's name is Martin Erikar, and he reached out because I was streaming the game around Christmas time, and he actually updated the art for the game to put a Christmas hat on the cover guy who's got a big long white beard. So that was a little fun. But yeah, I did. So anyways, one thing I wanted to say, I don't think this is intended as a marketing thing, but there is actually one nice thing to say about the, there's a nice thing to say about the addition of the Advent calendar. And that's just the fact that, like, if you've been sitting on the game, like waiting for it to go like 50% off on sale, which I'm going to assume is, you know, quite some time down the road. I just kind of think it's neat that there is something just a little bit on the margin if you know, if you're into that sort of thing. Is just a little something on the margin to maybe inspire you to pick up the game at its full price. Like, in the end, you know, 10% is 10%. It's not nothing, but it's not. You know, the question kind of then becomes: is it the sort of thing that you want to miss out on some interesting seasonal content for? Personally, I kind of like it when there are little touches like that, because it's hard not to tell it's hard to tell people, like, don't take advantage of a sale when it's on there. Obviously, developers do sales so that they can incentivize people to buy them, and sometimes the sale is just the price you pay to go into the Steam sales. But it's kind of nice that there's a little something the developer tosses out, especially because right now, you know, we're in sort of that cohort of people who are essentially paying full price for the game. And so as a result, you know, there's just a few nice little things that are added in. You get to say that you were part of the sorry, I just got a notice. Looks like somebody was trying to get into one of my social media accounts. Yeah, anyways, I don't know, like, I don't want to make it too much of an us versus them thing. I'm very delighted to know that people are into Book of Hours and that, but it is also kind of nice when you get to play a game early on that the sort of drumbeat of support extends to just having little experiences that, you know, make you happy. Now, there was one thing. I was waiting for for something to charge, so I got myself prepared all Christmassy, but some of the stuff that I was doing, trying to get set up, is I've been getting back into the habit of following through on, like, a Apple Fitness Plus program. I know it sounds very weird, but, like, I just really want to make sure that I'm actually paying attention to this mortal shell that I find myself in. And sometimes that means that I'll keep if I get out of sync in terms of my resting times and all of that, the time that I charge the phone is a little bit weird. So I just got the notification that it's done. I'm gonna just run and get that so I don't have the watch, like, draining at the times when it's least helpful to do so. But it'll just take a second. I'll be back momentarily. All right, I am back. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I need some time to get started. Even with the late start, I'm feeling a little scattered. But here we are. Welcome back, librarian. Everything is remembered. Hush House endures. Now, I am interested in the fact that we don't seem to have any of the Christmas... Oh, nope. I just wasn't paying attention. Oh, and... I was wondering if I'd get affected by this bug. So, we have a bunch of pale momets in... Oops. Hendrix, Unfortunately, these things are sort of single use, so I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem. All right, but yeah, this looks nice. I forgot that we were that we'd actually finished in winter. So, oh, Oh, this is interesting. So this one I can't move at all. Even if I want to try and put it in the inventory. Okay, that'll be one that I can write a bug report for, but if it's not going to move, then, you know, I don't need to worry. So yeah, let's take a second here. It's a festive season, so we'll see what's going on. So we've got the Keeper's Lodge, we've got the holly, we've got a wreath in the gatehouse. Christmas lights in the, what is the name for this? St. Brendan's Cloister, right. We've got... no Christmas in the infirmary. Lopley's Nook. Christopher Lopley doesn't celebrate Christmas. Oh, this is nice. The servants' quarters got streamers and snowflakes and... This is going to be bugging me. All right. So the Grand Ascent, I think this is the one we were expecting. I'm very pleased to see that the nave of the Abbey Church has got their wreaths. Well, also in the not windswept, the windlit gallery. And Christmas lights at the very top. All right, let's head back, see if there's anything else. So we'll go 2 by 2 for the rooms. Nothing in the librarian's quarters. You'd think you'd have like a little Christmas tree set up. I also think that's a particularly full room, so I can see why they wouldn't. Oh, there's decorations heading down. Sisterhood of the Triple Knot apparently does not celebrate Christmas. But Red William does. I wonder what decided what rooms got decorations and which ones didn't. Unsurprisingly, there's no no decorations up here. There is one in the staff area of the Cucurbit. The rest of the prison is obviously short on decoration. Nothing in the oubliette. We'll just assume these are Christmas candles. All right, and then the city itself has some decorations. So we've got some lights outside the Sweet Bones and a wreath on the door. It's worth remembering too that there's there's some discussions of this in the renewed episodes of Skeleton Songs. By the way, for my tea, I did want to go for coffee, except that it's quite late, so I figured tea might be a nice halfway point, but I went for flavored tea this time. So it's this thing called Espresso Yourself, and it's got coffee beans in it, but it's also they put some spices and such in it, so it's kind of like a Christmassy coffee. I figure anything with spices counts as Christmassy. Post office is similarly decorated. Even Denzel. Lovely. I'm guessing same. Oh yeah, so anyways, the Tom Balcock's Eve, I think, comes reasonably close to Christmas. So if you look up some of the celebrations with the Stargazy pie, you'll probably see much of that. We've got the rectory, and I do like the I'm assuming this is a symbol of the unconquered sun. Now Reverend Timothy's Christmas tree. Visitors leave surprising gifts on the tree to curry favor with the librarian or to win fortune from the Yule powers. Throughout December 2023, whenever winter arrives in Brancrew, you'll find gifts on the tree. Find out more at weatherfactory.biz. That's cool. So we've got a little bit of sea glass here. So I'm wondering if the sea... this actually makes me wonder now if the sea holly that we are finding was originally intended for the tree. Anyways, this is a really nice little touch. But we will get ready to do more serious business. Okay. So when I take a look at my notebook here, I should actually maybe take a note. I've got Each Flame is Fuel by Omar the Blaze, but I'm not sure if that was the last. Because I believe we did Prophecies of Glory as well. Yes, okay, no, I remember this rather clearly. So we finished where we did because we've got the sort of the left half side of the room done. These were the Omar the Blaze books. And now we're on to by Little Sophia and I guess I could go. That's always a tough one. Yeah, I'll just keep the I'll keep this ordering. Okay. So when we're ready to start reading, we will pick the right-hand side of this room. I suppose now I'm just curious, is there anything that I'm trying to do? I brought my tablet, but I haven't actually opened it up yet to see what's on the to-do list. Okay, so making Meerkat, a Stimfling, a Flushed Mommet, and then sleep with Edict's Liminal or Inviolable. But those were all, to do later tasks. Now, for some reason, I was under the impression that I had another thing to level up. I guess it was Watchman's Paradoxes, but we already seem to be there. I'll take a second to just collect on the odd chance that I got that wrong. I'll be honest, I don't have a huge use for the order form. Okay. So, there are some tasks that I want to perform, none that I need to perform right now, and in fact most of them are quite unlikely to be successful. So I'm going to leave that aside for now. I do eventually want to get to a point where I explore parts of the house as well as the various books, so I'm going to need to make a decision when I sort of break and move into some of these adjacent rooms. And then I suppose really a lot of this is going to hinge on what books we read and what they wind up giving me. Because if they wind up giving me a bunch of recipes, then clearly I'm going to spend a lot of time on those recipes. And if they don't, then we're going to get through them quite quickly. And that means I'm probably going to wind up exploring lots of the house. And it is worth remembering that when it comes to the house, 30 seconds is a short period of time to wait. But I do only get to explore one thing at a time. Which may involve a lot of waiting. So, I don't know. It's something for me to keep in mind, but I'm not gonna worry too much about, I don't want to go completely nuts in terms of maximizing the time that I spend on a bunch of different things. So, let's get reading. And again, it's not exactly the most exciting use, but I am going to help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. So we'll start by reading Little Sophia's works. Now these are ones that I've read a few times, so I'm not expecting too much, but we'll do it anyway. So, knock a familiar passage. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, I was also going to... Oh, I've not yet fed Tuppence. So let's take care of that. Figure some grapes will do in this case. So I'll use the spare whisk that I... Actually, you know what? We can use the fet for that. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. Okay, on to the pale desk. So that's Oblations in Iron. That's the second of Little Sophia's works. We'll also work on the Vincent text. So I believe one of these had... I believe one of the Tantras also had a... Oh, apparently not. Anyways, I believe there are 3. And then I'm not sure if I want to try the Nangala of Lagash texts as well. We'll figure that out at the time. The priority, as always, is giving things like Arab, Whist, Trist, or not Whist, sorry, Arab and Arab Fet and Trist. I want to move those first, simply because if I wind up using them to earn some money, they make less or none in some cases. Well, I guess none is less, but anyways, on to Vincent's Minglings. That's the last of the sort of lower end items. So now we can head to the reading room. Vincent's Inscriptions. So this is what I was meaning for. This was the Vincent Inscriptions, the transcription from A Cliff in Anatolia. So it's not a Tantra, but... And yeah, we can use the Shapt for the... Actually, you know what? We'll save that, and we'll use Faust instead. So if I'd like to do the Nangala of Lagash texts, I need 3 more, and I should actually be able to pull that off. So I changed my mind. Ah, yes. Okay, so I'm going to take a slightly different approach here. I'm going to start this up with the VAC, and then we're going to need the second one later. And yes, we're actually about to cross over into a different area. So, if you were here for lore, I know it's a long time to wait, but your time has come. Now, there is going to be a bit of a decision that I need to make in terms of when to use the Porphyrine. I know I talked about that earlier. My feeling on this is I am still going to try for and wait for a natural Pneuma. But in the event that I feel like I want to try and rush the possibility of getting a language, let's say, or, I really want to start committing some elements of the soul, maybe because I just have a lot of things that I want to do. Maybe I'm moving on to the consumables and I want to, I want to analyze those somewhat more quickly. Any of those situations are a time when I would be willing to jump ahead and do something different. And essentially, it's just, by provoking Pneuma a couple of times, essentially I'm going to wear out the visitors, so that increases the chances of me getting someone with a language that I might need. But on top of that, it also gives me a chance to play around with the skills a little bit. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Okay, I don't know why I'm bringing up the skills for that, but... And as always, we will renew our Faust. This may be an opportunity for us to... This may be an opportunity for us to get another batch of books read before too long. All right, a full belly makes a helpful friend. This beastie is now inclined to cooperate. Tuppence the other chicken. Tuppence's most notable quality, all observers will agree, is that she is not Terence. On to our readings. So, first of all, we are going to read the works by Little Sophia. By their marks shall ye know them. A monster hunting initiate of the hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, provides advice on finding the weak spots of Long. Little Sophia observes dryly, should one desire to slay an immortal, it is most practical excuse me. It is most practical to do so before they become immortal entirely. She details the marks, the changes that Long undergo as they abandon their mortal condition. As the lantern Long begins to abandon its flesh, its skin becomes loose, its bones soften. The sixth mark is to be observed thus: when the flesh between the finger and thumb can be pulled to the final finger joint. Oblations in Iron, a monster hunting initiate of the hour named the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia, records the exhibits she has rendered to the Worm Museum in the Mansis. Little Sophia has never visited the Worm Museum, or even the Mansis in person, and evidently has no desire to do so. She mixes ink with which incorporates the remains of her prey, writes her records in that ink, and then burns them before the Colonel's altar. It is essential, however, to permit no drop of the ink thereby obtained to enter any portal of the body, even a break in the barrier of the skin. Should any fragment of the worm remain viable, it might enter thereby, and the hunt's ultimate conclusion be melancholy indeed. Now, I do sometimes wonder about oblations in Iron. I'll make a quick note here about inks. So there's a little bit of a hint here in terms of things like inks. And I suppose if I had some kind of an ingredient, like if I had an ink that I could produce using desiccated witchworms, and this is about as close as I can get to an altar to the Colonel. So, we've got, this is the Watchman, so this is pretty clear. Madrigad, again, pretty clear. St. Januarius gives us clear names in these cases. Solar Altar, this doesn't really have any edge. So presumably if you're considering candidates for the Colonel or the Lionsmith, if it doesn't have edge, you're probably wasting your time. And then the other altars that we have down here, I think we can clearly associate with other powers. I'm assuming the Horned Axe probably doesn't have a warm opinion of the Colonel. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to think of here would be, there's the one example of, well, would we be able to do something with the witchworms on their own? In that case, no. Then I was like, okay, well, what about, we've got the Nillikant. Can't add that there. And then it's sort of like, well, is there something that I might be able to write with, the Nillikant? Or is there something... is there some kind of an ink or something I could write with the Nillikant that I could burn at the Colonel's altar? So the Incastum Terminale of the Third History, it's the bleak white blue of winter. It has spawned an itinerant order of secret celebrants who regard worms as semi-gods and who are sometimes called on to celebrate difficult funerals. So I think the best I can hope for here would be to get some kind of paper... if we try and literally take oblations in Iron, it's like, well, maybe add the Whist. Okay, well, what else are we going to do here? It's like, I don't know, maybe we do Sights and Sensations. Well, no, that just gives me an Awakened Feather. Or technically Nillikant, I suppose, but... so that doesn't really help me. Now, Inks of Containment. Okay, well, that's at least ink-related. But again, if you take a look at what we actually have available here, none of this really tells me that I'm going to be I'm going to be working with the kernel. Now, I mean, there might be a story I can tell here about, adding edge or something like that. Disciplines of the Scar, for instance, would be a wonderful choice in this case. But, then the question is like, well, I've already added the papers and the milk. Actually, I might be able to add the merciless alteration. Well, I would at a different desk. You know what? Let's actually give that a try. I don't think it's going to produce anything, but given the fact that little Sophia wrote about it, it seems worth it to at least give it a... I'm actually also going to try the Anthropoderm once because of the fact that it's human skin. But let's... Okay, so we achieved, a high level of edge. That didn't do anything for us. We can try the winter again. We didn't wind up. I'm assuming here we're waiting for the 15 lantern recipe. So the only other thing that I would imagine in this case would be if somehow Anthropoderm wound up being the difference, and it is, it's still worth checking. And then we bring back the merciless alteration. Again, we're not able to emulate whatever little Sophia would look for. Now, I mean, again, there's the whole story. Well, what about Inks of Containment? I should have maybe tried Inks of Containment. Though then again, I don't think the Inks of Containment would have been relevant here because, yeah, it doesn't go into that desk. So we need to find another edge desk that, well, Ava's desk would do that. So I think we already know what this... I think this is the one that we need to make Maricat from. Yeah, in this case here, if there is something from Oblations in Iron that we're supposed to read in terms of like working out some kind of a puzzle, I'm just not close enough to sort of figure it out. So in this case, I sort of see some value in moving on. I also probably need to reorder the books. Yeah. Okay. Vinzant's Minglings. The metallurgist and skysmith Everett Vinzant speaks of the sacred alloys, the alloys eternal, the alloys sufficient, the alloys intendant. Everett describes the voices and powers of mortals and immortals based on their composition by analogy to the sounds and strengths of bells based on the metals of their casting. Vinzant warns that the mingling of metals of too great a nobility can produce the alloys incestuous. He suggests very cautiously that the means used by the sovereigns of the Leashed Flame to produce their heirs may have analogous issues. For though the crime of the sky might be circumvented, yet the law remaineth the law in spirit as in letter. And I do have something of a feeling that this may be related to Henry VIII. Because this is obviously another reference to sort of corruption counterfeit. The Vinzant inscriptions. Everett Vinzant described these from a cliff in Anatolia where he famously survived a lightning strike. He died 7 years later to the day. His bones, the legend has it, were hot to the touch. Long ago, the Sisterhood of the Knot recounted the Forge loved the hour called the sun in splendor. The Red Grail long anticipated their union, and the Grail priestesses prophesied it. The remainder of the text consists of gloating remarks by the Grail priestesses of the shaping that will come, interpolated with warnings and laments from those of the sisterhood who serve the Ringyu, and especially the Horned Axe. Nevertheless, an invocation to the Forge is included as part of an attempt to urge it onwards. So I actually want to change that. That should be at the end, given that any book written, any other Everett Vinzant book, if it was written after the Vinzant inscriptions, it's got a kind of a 7-year horizon in which to be written. So it's entirely possible, but it's less likely, let's say, than some of the others to be the, or say this is more likely than the others to be the last one. So on resonance, experiments in ithistry by the skysmith Everett Vincent. Vincent suggests percussion instruments might be sympathetic to a number of hours and names. Some are more likely than others. Vincent uncontroversially suggests drums of various materials as the sympathetic instrument for the thunderskin and its ascendant duenderzones. He proposes bells of bronze and iron for the lionsmith and the colonel. He spends some time on the design of a bee rattle for the malachite, but doesn't seem entirely confident of his findings. All right, we're not quite going to read this one yet. So what I want to do now is I want to sort of double back, and I want to make sure. So I'm moving on to texts which require VAC. So in this case, we're going to read observations on the peacock door using the VAC, and then we'll read the both Nangala of Lagash texts together. Now, what else do I have available? We've got the Queen's Turn, which is by the Barrow Child, as is In Memory of God. So we do actually have 2 more to work with. And I'm sort of left... left scrambling for the last one. I'm not going to try and read that up in Natan's desk. This one is Fusine. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Now, if you'll excuse me just a minute, I'm not going to make this a full break, but there is actually one other thing that I need to pick up really quick, so I'm just going to be back momentarily. This is purely me being snacky, but I forgot I had a California roll. So. Okay. So you can kind of see the dilemma that I have when it comes to these reading periods. There's just sort of extended silence, which can be nice in its own way, but really we're just trying to get information from the various texts here. So I don't know how much you can hear the chewing. I'll try and keep that away from the mic. Okay. So we're going to start by reading at the Vagabond's desk, and then we'll move on. So, in the mountains as upon the plain, there may not be a path where none has passed. Nangala of Lagash describes the secrets to be found in mountains. Naingala tells a number of lively stories about riddling ogres and the wars between mountain tribes, but turns somber in the tale of the empty-handed hunter, a lover of the Grail who sought to match her appetites and join her as an hour, but in the end rent and devoured himself, giving his name to the mountains he had once roamed. Naingala claims that the hours who sometimes manifest as birds, the laughing thrush, the ivory dove, the beach crow, and the witch and sister, meet at a secret location on a mountaintop to exchange gossip unheard by their peers. Now and then a mortal overhears them. The mortal is always obliterated, and the meeting place always changed. And for some reason I keep forgetting the witch and sister. Fits this group, the Aviform Hours. Observations on the Peacock Door. Naingala of Lagash discusses the Peacock Door, the highest door available to mortals in the Mansis, a rent, an imperfection, an abrasion. Notably, the book is written in Vac, which, by some accounts, is another aspect of the Peacock Door itself. Naingala addresses this by apologizing courteously to the door and the language at the end of every section. The Peacock Door did not exist, Naingala says, in the days when the gods from stone entered the Mansis. They used the Fanged Key to open the Savage Door, a door not usually available to mortals. Speech, as the initiates of Kion would have it, is a wound. I fear that through that wound the blood of the Mansis flows even now, and that one day speech will be an end to dream. I fear that, but I fear the alternative far more. So that's, again, fairly significant lore, but it's not something that we can directly take action on in terms of like a recipe to put together or something like that. So I'm passing over it, but it is something that maybe I'd want to follow up on another session when I want to really go into the text. For that, though, I do find it helpful to just have all the text in front of me, so that I'd probably keep in a separate document. Okay, so we did In Memory of Gods. Didn't we have I could have sworn we had another Barrow Child. Ate too soon. All right. The Queen's Turn, a 16th century translation of the Barrow Child's account of Lagia's turn, when Lagia, the Queen Unsated, was offered an opportunity to enter the service of the Hours of the Triple Knot, as long as she repudiated her brother-lover Antaios. Lagia accepts, setting aside the arts of the low red sun associated with Antaios. She bargains, however, for freedom for her daughters. The Hours of the Triple Knot accept casually, knowing that Lagia has devoured her daughters, but wily Lagia has decided, in the secret hollow of her heart, that she will adopt any who ask if they can prove their fierceness. The traditions described here, the ones generally described as hill and hollow, are associated with Lagia before her turn, but now that she is a name of the Red Grail, they might also be used safely before an altar of the Triple Knot. So, this one was, I think, the first one that got us a secret of the treasure of the house. Now, that's one that probably, under normal circumstances, I would commit to trying at the altar. But we have. I'll do it to demonstrate, but I'm not gonna write that down because it's one that I believe I have done already. And In Memory of Gods, the Barrow Child, a nameless Gaulish adept who joined the organization... Hang on. Yes, this is another Barrow Child. So the Barrow Child, a nameless Gaulish adept who joined the organization identified as the Order Lamea, writes regretfully of the destruction of the gods who were stone, the Hours who preceded humanity. The Barrow Child singles out the Scarred Tribune, the Red Grail, the Forge, and the Moth for special condemnation as murderers of the first gods. We live in the shadow of their crime, she writes, and we must evade it or repeat it. The Barrow Child describes how the Grail drained the hour called Tide, how the Moth usurped the wheel from within, stealing its skin, and how the Forge first eclipsed and then shattered Flint. Perhaps these are glories, she observes, but then it cannot be that glory is merciful. And we have a Foss to work with. So one thing I want to do here is take a quick look at what I can accomplish today. So we have 3 Fusine texts, the Iron, the Silver, and the Ivory book. So, and we should have enough time to read all of them. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start by reading the first one, and essentially what we're doing is we're restoring our elements of the soul in time to read. Essentially, it's kind of a just-in-time sort of approach to reading. We'll read them in one big group, but I wanted to at least get things queued up. Let's see if there's anything else on the tree. I think it's just going to be the stone, but. I want to just click on a few things, make sure there aren't any other secrets waiting for me here. You know, type in the Konami code and you wind up with a whole new book. Better now. Okay. So I'm going to run on this assumption that we're completing the Order Lamea books today. We should have enough time to see this all through. I will grab the language, and then we'll move on to the next section. I'm curious if any of you have had a chance to see any of the new Christmas stuff. Again, sorry, I'm probably going straight into the mic. It is a good chance for me to eat exactly one more piece of sushi, but it does feel a little awkward with such a late start when there's normally a smaller number of people. It is one of those cases where somebody new... Kostu says, what's the difference between desks where you're reading? Hello, by the way. That's a really good question, actually. So let me just take a quick second here and queue up my next reading, and then I can answer that pretty directly. Actually, gotta get the language. So there's a few different ways that the desks come into play. So the first thing I mean, I'll actually, this will be like a comprehensive breakdown of desks. Some of these will not be as interesting to some people, but I think there's value in kind of talking about each of the aspects because they're all something that will be relevant to the game at some point for most people. So the first difference is just simply whose desk it is. So in this case, a magnificent 18th century secretary desk commissioned for Lady Ava de Wolf, last of the Brandkrug de Wolfs. And of course, you can take a look at the room. The first floor, the notorious Ava de Wolf, first and last Baroness Brandkrug, liked this room because this side of the house carried the fewest memories of her poor father Valentine, so she could eavesdrop on the conversations of visitors waiting below, or just because of how the pale light slanted through the windows in the last days of winter. So, this is Ava's desk, both in terms of name, but also just where it's found. Everything about this desk is associated with Ava. Likewise, you've got Natan's desk. It's an apothecary's desk, all right, but dates from at least 100 years after Natan of Regensburg came here. Of course, his son, his grandson, and his great-grandson were all Natan's too. So again, you learn a little bit about the house and the fact that exploring the house and understanding a little bit of what's going on does actually wind up unlocking a few different puzzles and details for you. I do think that the text is relevant to these, but it's probably not the biggest reason. It's certainly not the main reason why I'm reading certain texts at certain desks. The most relevant reason is because certain elements of the soul are permitted in certain slots. Desks behave like every other crafting station in that there are certain aspects that are requirements in the soul skill and memory slots. Generally, the lower slots, the papers and width, those are a little bit more forgiving, just mostly in the sense that they have limitations, but generally those limitations are not based on aspect. So I'll do an inventory of the house's desks. So we've got Ava's desk, which is Edge, Grail, Moon, and Winter. And you can actually see, I don't think there's any surprises well, maybe Edge is a bit of a surprise for me, but in terms of Winter, right, we've got that description right in the, in this end here. Also, paleness, but I'm assuming not every pale person probably isn't winter aspected. Moon, we've got, I think it was the crossing to noon. Anyways, there were a couple of kind of moony references to Ava at some point that I thought were worth. Generally, Grail for a number of reasons, and then, like I said, the Edge was the only one that didn't quite line up for me. So you learn a little something about the person that the desk is associated with. But in very practical terms, I've actually run into the situation where I want to do something at a desk, and I've used up a whole bunch of different desks. And while I do have a spare desk available, I don't have the element of the soul that's relevant for that desk. And so I'm able to do fewer things than I thought I did. Another good example of this is actually when I try to upgrade certain, or not upgrade, but try to solve certain nectar mysteries. Nectar is a bit of a tricky one to get lined up properly. How you doing, Tempmine? You've got the earth sign, which is rather good for nectar. That gives you 2 nectar and 2 scale. But the other source of nectar would be the impulse and also the rainy day. So the impulse is moth and nectar. The earth sign is scale and nectar, and the rain is grail and nectar. So rain would work at Ava's desk, but the earth sign wouldn't because there's no scale. Impulse also wouldn't work at Ava's desk. Likewise, at the pale desk, which isn't listed as the pale desk, but because we're currently reading a book. But the pale desk has lantern, scale, sky, and winter. And again, it's not surprising that there's winter there. The other ones are maybe a little bit less clear for me. But I wasn't traveling at night. It was it's the one about the palest painting. Anyways, it describes the creation of the desk. I'll be sure to read that later. Natan's desk is heart, knock, rose, and moth. We have got the reading room desk, so that's a heart, lantern, moth, and sky. I'll have to read the description for that along with Ambrose Westcott's desk, the forge, knock, lantern, and sky desk. We've got David Green's The Vagabond desk, an elegant relic repurposed by Green for his small and secret war. Edge, knock, rose, and scale. Catastrophically Emma says, at least the game is forgiving. You always have tomorrow. The only time there's really pressure to get things done is during Numa. Sure. It's a point I think I've certainly talked about a few times, but the difficulty in terms of whether or not I need... So the specific challenge I mentioned to Kuzdo with the idea of wanting to try and get a certain number of things done at desks, because those are tied to memories, that is actually one case where it can be a bit more time sensitive. Because if you have... So for instance, we've got the situation where you've got nectar as a result of rain. Well, you're not going to get that... You're not going to be able to keep that rain. You're going to have to use that on that given day. And then, of course, there's the more structural problem, which is that if you are relying on the weather alongside one of the other memories, essentially you still have that problem of having to move together. Like, you have to assemble them together. And so that one's less of a question of time so much as a question of, discovering the relevant rooms, which we'll get to in the next part of the house. But yeah, so a room associated with David Green here and the Vagabond, so an associated aspects. At the turn of the century, Sir David Green, 8th Librarian and former Nocturnal Branch Superintendent, had this room refurnished to plan his explorations and to manage the operations of his many guests. So Nona's desk is one that I think is particularly helpful for the reason that we just kind of covered. So, and this is in the chapter house here, the monastic superiors would meet to manage the affairs of St. Brendan's and to resolve its disputes. Here, in 1349, the last trial of the last nuns of St. Brendan's took place. 2 were executed for the murder of Abbess Nona, supposedly with perversions of the healing arts. Nona was the last abbess of St. Brendan's, and after the trial, the monastery never accepted female novices again. From the wide windows, the sea is always visible, beating on the rocks far below. So this would be Nona's desk. Abbess Nona, apothecary, scholar, dancer. So lantern, grail, nectar, and heart. Actually, I did forget. So in answer to your question, Kuzdo, I actually tend not to include these as desks just because it's called the Spire Prospect. But it is actually worth remembering these as well because they do behave like... they behave very similarly to desks. They have fewer fewer aspects you can work with. So you've got a moth and a sky. But you'll also notice here that it'll accept element of the soul, cooperative, and blank, whereas I believe a traditional desk has a different... It'll take a readable and a blank. So in this case here, I wouldn't actually be able to read a book at the Spire Prospect. That is actually maybe one thing I should have said at the start. You can read multiple books in the game. You don't just need to consider them. And in fact, reading them at a desk will allow you to take advantage of a tool or an ink. But the prospects are a little bit different, even though they superficially have a connection to desks. Now, I believe the last desk, I don't think there's anything down in the Dawn period, but we've got the deeply unrecognized hero of the Book of Hours, Governor Collar's desk, a desk as severe and practical as Collars himself. And even from that description, you can kind of already feel the lantern, edge, moth, and forge. But yes, this is Crucible Tower, Governor's Office. The Governor's Office, quietly luxurious, at least by the standards of the Kukurbet. Collars was devoted to his cause and his service, but he did insist on his little pleasures. So the main thing you were asking about, Kuzdo, was the differences between the desks. But the one thing that makes them most useful for my current purposes is, in fact, the fact that they have the fact that you can put readable inside. That's the one thing they all have in common, and that is very, very helpful for me. But in terms of specifics as to the differences between the desks, the main one is the fact that you can put different aspects in them. And that can be an advantage because that will allow you to create things that you may not have been able to in other circumstances. But it does also have a bit of a kind of a cost as well. So I don't recall if yes, we are working on the third now. I could try and get a little bold and work at the sweet bones, but I think we're going to say that's it for book reading today. I'm going to give it another minute. Yeah, no worries. I probably took longer than what I think anybody was expecting on that, but I didn't want to reduce it just down. So the main reason for going deep like that is not just the fact that I talk a lot and I like to talk a lot, but it's always nice to reinforce the little details about Book of Hours, like the fact that the nice writing isn't just there to include some flowery language. If you look into details, you learn more about these different people, and in the face of you haven't played in about a month, so I'm starting a new game this weekend, either Schapt Whist or Fat Fost. Well, I'm sure as you can see, you've got some decorations waiting for you. There's also some gifts that you can pick up somewhere around here. I'll leave that for discovery, though. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to highlight the details about personalities is that when you are placing the busts in the various niches, so let's actually take Ava de Wolf. So 7th Baroness Brandkrug, a niche with a plaque not to be crossed and not to be found. And you can compare that to 6th Baron Brandkrug, who knew cages, or 1st Librarian of the Curie of the Isle, who often purified but was not often pure. Whether or not this is going to be enough for you to figure out, I think the Strathcoin one is fairly, I think that's fairly clear, as far as the hints go anyway. Oop, do I not get to do the... There we go. Who died not but passed within. That's a reference to the Carapace Cross. But I don't know. I do think that the personality stuff, the little details about the various characters, do become relevant when you have a game that does actually encourage you to sort of place certain things in the right locations. So that was one of the reasons why. The easy answer to this is just say they have different aspects, and so you can basically craft and read different things. But in practice, you do, my view at least, is if you want to get the most out of the experience, then paying attention to some of the little details matter as well. Which is one of the reasons why I will actually read the descriptions of the desks once I finish the books of various substances. Okay, so I think it was the Iron Book was the one that we wanted first. Here it is. The Iron Book, a manual of the Ordo Limea, order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limia in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. This, or possibly Galatia. This manual was compiled by one Milari Yivni, who claims to have traveled to join the Ordo from the crossroads of the waters. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the Iron Chain, that required them to remain hidden from the world. This manual includes presumably long obsolete addresses and passphrases that could have been used to find the Ordo's contact in the town of Iria. The final part of the manual describes the punishments for Ordo members who break their oath of secrecy. This includes an invocation used to summon the spirit called King Crucible as an agent of vengeance. Yivni cautions that this must be a last resort when the Oathbreaker would otherwise go unpunished. Summoning King Crucible might draw the personal attention of the Forge of Days. A marginal note suggests in any case that King Crucible, in the most transcendent Sulk of Sulks, no longer leaves the Mansus. The Silver Book, a manual of the Ordo Limea, an order of quasi-immortals sorry, or it's probably Limia. Limia? I don't know. An order of quasi-immortals who maintained secret enclave at the source of the river Limia in the Roman province of Hispania Gallica. This manual was compiled by one Burzgash, who explains that he came to join the Ordo from the city of messenger eagles after he abandoned the service of the ivory dove. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the silver chain, that forbade men to lie with women and women with men. For what may come is not always the crime of the sky, yet that is a furious danger. It was apparently permissible for men to lie with men and women with women. In fact, Burzgash suggests that that should be encouraged to distract from other temptations. The manual prescribes potential countermeasures to protect those who might be tempted to go against the oath: masks, disfigurement, severe poetic disciplines. Those who do break it are to be punished with death, although there are lesser punishments prescribed for various acts that don't involve actual coitus. Death is to be administered with the glassfinger toxin, which can be created with the assistance of the techniques described earlier in the manual and with sufficient knock aspect. So we certainly don't know what the skill was in the manual, but we'll at least write that one down. So this is actually a decent example, kind of where the descriptions sort of matter and implicate, like the conclusions that you draw from things being close to each other. So when it says that the techniques described earlier in the manual, when I read this the first time, that there would be skills that came out of the Silver Book. Now, I didn't record them as part of my spreadsheet, so the knowledge of what was contained inside the Silver Book in terms of skills, that's lost to me, and so I have less information about this glassfinger toxin recipe. Now, the fact of the matter is I already know how to make glassfinger toxin. I've done that over several, in several videos of this playthrough. But it's just, where I was talking previously about how it's nice to read the details and sort of look at some of the descriptions inside of the desks. Well, here's an example about why paying attention to these details matter. Because if you needed glassfinger toxin, which incidentally was something that I used to, to help me create something that I wanted a lot, I have a lot more work ahead of me if I'm not paying attention than if I take the time to write down the note. So. And we'll make sure tomorrow we actually do that recipe. Again, it's not exactly that it's not like I don't know how to make glassfinger toxin, but it would be nice to continue that pattern of actually doing the recipes I find, because I have actually wound up finding a couple of interesting things as a result of doing that. Finally, the Ivory Book, a manual of the Order Limea, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limia in the Roman province of Hispania Gallica. This manual was compiled by one Kurenai, who claims to have fled the tyranny of the Chrysanthemum throne to cross the world and join the Ordo. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the Ivory Chain, not to have commerce with the Hours. Followed literally, this would be almost impossible for an adept, so the manual contains numerous clarifications, exceptions, and processes of indulgence. Kurenai describes the Order's burial rites, which include spells to ensure, in theory, that the souls of dead long are not given to the Hours. The hour called the Ivory Dove, who memorializes and commemorates, is to be invoked in secret in these rites, for with that hour we have made an understanding. One other detail just to mention, and again, this would be something that you probably don't notice at the time that you find this or read the books, but I believe it said here the Ivory Vault. How did the Curia of the Isle begin? There is no evidence they began with the House of Leith, that society of unseen immortals bound by 3 oaths. But this vault, much newer than the tunnels above, does seem to reference the oath called the Ivory Chain, which forbade commerce with the Hours, except sometimes with the winter hour known as the Elegist, or the Ivory Dove. Solomon Husher remarked that this might be considered less an oath of rejection of the Hours and more an oath of loyalty to the Elegist, but Solomon, of course, vanished into the snow. So there is a... once you get down into the caves, this is where you start sort of seeing quite a bit about sort of questions about the origins and some of the founding figures in here. Where did the Curia of the Isle come from? Across the Western Ocean from Noon, where the Ordo Lamea made their home. That would raise more questions than it answered, but this vault would seem to be of their making, and it would also seem to reference the oath called the Iron Chain, which binds every resident of Noon to remain hidden from the world, so that Calyptra might not look upon us, so that the chancel might not hear our names, so that the Hours might not devour us. But interestingly enough, I don't think, at least, that I have found a silver chain room. Unless... oh, hang on. There it is. So, I just wasn't paying attention to the chains earlier, but... and you can see on the images, forbidden. Did the Curia of the Isle construct this vault? They were not long. Most of them were not long, so they were not the Obliviates, that society of unseen immortals bound by 3 oaths. But this vault does seem to reference the oath called the Silver Chain, which forbade men to lie with women or women with men. For what may come is not always the crime of the sky, yet that is a furious danger. I did know that there were 3 Curia vaults, and I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting there's a gap here. I wonder if it's implied that there's a hidden room. I did know that there was another vault, but I had forgotten about the silver chains. I remember the other chains, though, because I was like, what on earth is going on here? And I think this is just the... it's possibly holding up the... kind of the stopper. Anyways. I think that's all that I wanted to do. So for... tomorrow, I have more Burzgash, so he was also the author of the Silver Book, but we've got The Messenger Awaiting Her Destination and The Road to Janus. Both of these are VAC texts, so we have to read those in order. We also have CROD writing his fan work about the Obliviate Order. Yeah, Order of Obliviates, and then the Noble Endeavor in the House of Leith should also be... should be included in some of these. All right. I may take a minute to refill my tea before too long, but let's see if maybe we can make it to the end of winter for the drinks. All right, as always, we get a few extra elements of the soul if we work in Brandkrug and the Sweet Bones. So I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Now recall, we did want to verify the Glassfinger toxin recipe, so we'll do some crafting over here. I do want to find something that will accept knock. Now the Shrine to St. Januarius would fit the bill, but I think I'm going to go for... actually, St. Januarius... yeah, we don't get to use Lantern there, so let's start with a dispensary. Oh, it does feel better to... I can't remember. I don't think there's another knock on these. Yeah. Anyway, we'll throw the shaft in, and nope. I guess the Asmiel would, or yeah, Sacrament Asite, not Asmiel, would be the best best bet. Let's also find a you can put a knock flower. If I have one. Oop, not sea holly. I know there's a knock one, I can just never remember what it is. There it is, the moth orchid. And I do not believe we have a high intensity knock memory for any of... Oh, the occult scrap does. So the purpose of this is, like, in some cases this is just overkill, but the main purpose of this is to have a little bit of everything in terms of the different aspects. So, you know, I don't have remains, but it's just a nice little way of making sure that I can so yeah, Glassfinger Toxin here, and that can create the Sacrament Asite. Not all of these are knock oriented, but you know what? I'm actually going to make notes of these, so. So this is telling, right? The fact that there's a 10 knock for the there's 10 knock, but among flower, so the aspects that we have are flower, liquid, beverage, memory, and enough for keeper. Keeper knock, okay. Door and wall. Again, I'm not expecting miracles out of most of these, but it is nice to just have a record. I do need to remember to craft orichalcum wire at some point, because I have a feeling that that will unlock quite a few recipes. By that I mean the keeper level recipes. I have a feeling that I'm sitting on a bit of a gold mine for those. Okay, surgeries and exsanguinations. There's actually a few more glass toxin ones than I thought. Oh yes, there was also a reference to checking out a Mystery of the House with Hill and Hollow, so I will... Or, sorry, there was a reference to using it at the Sisterhood's altar with Hill and Hollow. And again, I believe that was the very first treasure of the house that we picked up. But it doesn't hurt to follow up. So this was the one that I used. We can throw... Moon Wormwood Dream gives us a bunch of that as well. But yeah, in any case, unless I think that it's some kind of a, you know, oh no, it has to be keeper level, In this case, we're fine. And I don't know, and this would be an interesting question. So the individual, well, yeah, okay. So the moon works here. Let's examine. Scale works here. I guess if we were going for scale, we would use the earthquake name. Now this I'm actually a little curious about. Okay. And then the malachite would not accept hill and hollow. Again, this is just me being curious more than anything. This doesn't really count as an altar, and this I suspect doesn't count as triple knot, although it also wouldn't accept it. But yeah, so I mean, again, there's no surprises there, just because we did already successfully get something from this altar doing that, doing what was instructed. But now is the time for me to actually verify some of those things, right? It's the same reason why I tried the various permutations that the desk or the crafting station will accept, because if I don't try some of that weird stuff, I never find the delightful stuff. And I seem to recall the last broadcast we actually did wind up with a few surprises as a result. But the time has come for me to read some more books, so we're going to learn a little bit more about the Obliviates, as well as the its predecessor. I believe the House of Leith was the predecessor, and then the Society of Noble Endeavor. So this one is also in Vax, so I'm going to have to leave that aside. But we can read CROD's masterpiece. This is one of these cases where, if I can, I would really like to read everything up to Exercises in the Continuity of Self. And I think we will actually be able to pull that off. Okay. So Sabazine is one that we have. It's Vac that would sort of ruin this. So again, just to return to Kuzdo's previous question, you can kind of see, so there's two things that I'm trying to do with this allocation here. One of them is I'm trying to preserve a certain order for the books, because that just makes it a little bit easier for me to read things in order. For instance, I can leave this desk open knowing that I'm going to be reading these two works beside each other. And so as a result, one of the things I'm doing is I'm prioritizing, first of all, the skills that won't earn me money in the Sweet Bones, because, you know, I might as well get those out of the way if I don't think I'm going to use them for any other purpose. But after that, next thing I'm sort of doing is trying to use the elements of the soul that I have more than one copy of. Again, if I wind up needing to do some kind of crafting, it's nice to have some elements of the soul available to work with. And then finally, if it really comes down to it, I pick the element of the soul that will allow me to sort of continue the pattern of, reading the books in certain locations in certain orders. That's absolutely not necessary for the game, but it does help me kind of keep track of all of the different books that I'm reading. Okay. Yeah, so I have 2 more books to read. We can use one at Abbess Nona's desk. Oops. And then, of course, the Unappreciated Heroes, Governor Collar's desk. I used this desk a lot less than I would like. And as you can see, if I really wanted to go for it, I could actually read the rest of the... Whoa! Damascene Traditions of the House of Leith. Well, lucky me, I've got a consider verb. It's a lot of topics, but I've already called it, or it probably should just call it House of Leith and Descendants. Might be another way of doing it, but I've got enough space. Okay. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So we will definitely restore that Faust. Right, so we move on. Nearly Logical, thank you very much for your resubscription. I appreciate that quite a bit. I hope you're doing well. We've been going through... I had a bit of a weird day today, but overall, I'd say it's a fairly good one. But we've just been going through text, so I am just about to finish the smoking room. Or sorry, the Westcott room. And then we'll move on to the Severn Chamber, although I do need to figure out when I want to read the ink texts as well. Kind of like to read the ink texts close to the various histories books. Surely I don't... Yeah, okay. This is also one where I'll probably wind up shuffling a few books around as well. And this is going to seem a bit weird, but I'm actually going to take the time. I'm going to wait to read all of these various texts. I do think I want to read everything in order, so... Yeah, again, I don't want to relitigate all of it at the start, but basically I wanted to just... I need to update a couple of bits of government identification. One of them has already expired, but people are kind of relaxed about... Like, everybody knows it's sort of hard to get this stuff renewed. So as a result, people are a bit more relaxed about it. But this is one of these things, like, I don't consider myself particularly conservative. But this is actually where I wind up sounding very Tory in some of my attitudes, which is... Like, the reason why we have laws and the reason why we have, you know, sort of rules and guidelines, you know, are to sort of make sure that everything doesn't fall apart. And it sometimes isn't like pure mayhem that causes the problem, right? Like at least in North America, it's still a fairly rare circumstance that we're going to see just, maniacs running around on the street, causing all sorts of problems. But there can be a big problem in terms of like people becoming comfortable with the degree of shoplifting. Because if it suddenly moves from something that rarely happens to like, you can do it, just don't take too much. There is actually a societal cost to that, right? Like either, some of the businesses can't bear it, and so the prices go up for everyone. But I know shoplifting is something that a lot of people are like, no, it's cool. You're a cop if you think it's not okay to shoplift. And I'm like, no, I think it's important to have, follow the rules. And the government ID thing is one of them, right? Like the expiry date exists for a reason, but the fact that it takes so much to replace the ID, the expiry date is meaningless just because nobody really wants to be a jerk. And the thing here is not for me to say everybody should be a jerk about it. It should be if the expiry date is necessary, and I think it is because, government IDs traditionally are the sorts of things that you would use to get more serious types of documentation. So for instance, passports and such. And I'm sure for like the security stuff, they probably do care a lot more about the expiry date. But basically the idea here is the argument is more for maybe we should create situations under which the system isn't so bad that everyone just kind of tacitly acknowledges it's broken and develops a workaround, right? Or alternatively, if the expiry date really doesn't matter that much, maybe we should actually just say, let's get rid of this thing. It's causing more trouble than it's worth. So anyways, that rant about the breakdown of society aside, because I do actually want to get this thing updated, I was going to go in, but the drawback really is that if you don't show up like at the start of the day for the service office, it's a die roll as to whether or not you're going to be able to make it happen. And I did have other things that I wanted to get done today. So, I slept through my alarm, realized I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and just decided to get a bunch of other stuff done. Which again, I'm not unhappy that I did, but it was a bit of a winding path, as you say. All right. The messenger awaiting her destination. Limian Burzgash records his prophecies of a city unbuilt and entreaties to its herald. The herald may never arrive at the city unbuilt. The city may never be built without the herald's message. The herald is finally identified as the 12th initiate of the House of Silence. The foundation stone will be taken from the House of Silence, Burzgash suggests, to become the foundation stone of the city unbuilt. The Road to Janus. The Limian Burzgash makes a series of prophecies regarding the initiates of the House of Silence, with intricate, if unhelpful, predictions on their passage through the house. The 6th initiate is priest and key, gate and church. He shall cross the sea and open the tide. He shall not be the 11th, yet shall there be 7 between them. In the first year of his time, the flower door is opened. Okay. I really want to figure that one out. So the 12th initiate is salvation and rack, steed and rider, who chooseth one blossom of 3, who casteth away the key, and whom the key shall not cast away, who comes after the flame and before the snow. Oh, that's interesting if he talks about choosing blossoms, because the flame would be the red and presumably the snow would be the white. So that would imply the black blossom, which I seem to remember was the one that I didn't care for. Anyway, I do want to work out this 6th initiate. So if I go by librarians, right? So Um, that would be William Harris. Well, see, this is the interesting one, right? So it says, the sixth initiate is priest and key, gate and church. He shall cross the sea and open the tide. He shall not be the 11th, yet shall there be 7 between them. In the first year of his time, the flower door is opened. So this is the part that's a little weird here, right? So we've got, 6th, 7th, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got 13th librarian. Well, I'm not quite sure what to make of that. And then when he says he will not be the 11th, well, we know the 11th, Gravenius Van Loren, who also is Nock. I actually believe those are the only 2 Nock that would have fallen under those candidates. But I'm having a little trouble parsing out the 7 between them. So Strathcoyne stepped in because nobody else was available. Brulot, then Harry's. So presumably this has something to do with the transition. So what might be interesting is to find out what the story is about David Green. Like, what are the conditions under... What are the conditions under which Green became the librarian? I'm also curious. Let's move off to the side. He served 2 masters as best as he could. We said 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so if I talked about administrators, then that would be 9. But that still doesn't bring it up to 11. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out the... shall be 7 between them. Oh, actually, I'm curious how many governors there might have been. I'm not going to have the answer to that right away, but I think I know the things that I will want to find out about to follow up on that. Okay, let's read the rest of these. Those indignities perpetrated by the deceitful fraternity of Obliviates. It's not clear whether CROD, who is identified only by his initials, was in fact an initiate of the Obliviate Order of Immortal Adepts. He wrote in the 16th century, after the order, if he is to be believed, had passed the height of its power. 58, that they did claim inheritance of the traditions of the House of Leith, but that they have disregarded both its most sacred and its most beautiful ceremonies where they are not found convenient. 59. 71. The Glassfinger toxin is no mere assassin's convenient for the Oblividiots to confine to the disposal of their enemies. It has higher uses. Certainly it is a great matter of winter, but I have already outlined the technique by which it may be fitted for its ultimate destiny. Okay, so I am curious. I do believe this is more than just fun to read. I think that's probably Um, the aim on this one, I can't remember if it's the Sacrament Assite. It's probably the Sacrament Assite. The more I think about it. But yeah, this is another example where I kind of wish that I had the skill that I got from that particular book. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to. One of the reasons why I wanted to take a look at the. Or why I wanted to write this down, because I would like to mess that out. Kieran, how you doing? I hope you're having a good stream. Just stopping by to say hi. Currently catching up on the VODs. Always appreciate you hanging out, Kieran. We're continuing to read through the book, so we've made it through the Westcott room, or we're about to make it through the Westcott room in terms of our reading and move up to the Severn Chamber, which will mean that if I don't have a Pneuma coming up soon, I'll probably want some more Elements of the Soul to start examining different items in the house. Either way, though, it is always very nice to see you. You can feel free to hang out as long or as little as you want. I know you're trying to avoid seeing anything too dramatic, but here it's mostly just reading things we've read already before. I hope you have a good time, whatever it is you wind up doing. I realize that sounds very fake, but that's the best for me to say, because I don't want to create a feeling where you're like, oh, you're not sticking around? No, I get it. All right, Carbonic Schism probably makes the most sense. Yeah, Damascene Traditions of the House of Leaf and Sunset Celia. No, Sunset Celia and the End of Days probably should be. I might want to rearrange the books, actually. Yeah, I think I know how I'm going to do this. So let's focus on the ones that specifically refer to the Obliviates, even if it just means the... Okay, Sunset Celia and the End of Days. An Obliviate adept identified only as the Emiliano rants desperately about the part Sunset Celia played in the Intercalate as the proxy of the sun. Now she walks behind the Watchman, but did she always? She has many of the characteristics of a maid in the mirror, after all. In older texts, she has been called Kalia the Elegabline. Perhaps she was his daughter, perhaps Tryphon's sister. Perhaps, like the Watchman himself, she is like a shadow cast by two candles. What must be revealed will be revealed. Our order's root is tainted, but its branches flourish beneath the shelter of the Watchman's greater tree. I shall invoke its rights before the chancel, the cruciate, and the road. I shall write a final history, or another shall write it for me. Okay, I'm gonna write this... Oh no, it's not a new playthrough, Kieran. So I'm curious. This is I should just clarify. The current playthroughs that are active on the channel. So this is the first playthrough I did when I was given not the beta copy, but the copy prior to the game's release. So that I'm still continuing my Twiceborn playthrough. The other playthrough is the one in VODs, and those are the numbered ones on YouTube. They're anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes long usually. And those ones are the Artist Legacy. And that was one that I did separately so that I could have a dedicated YouTube series. It's a little weird to have, both of, to have two going in parallel, but the fact that you could save the game made that possible. So I wanted to follow up. But yeah, I don't mean to imply that this is a brand new playthrough. This is still the whole house. I forgot a couple details here. So this is by Emiliano. Ah, yes, yes, yes. I won't tell you the circumstances under which those other elements of the soul have emerged. You can see that as you watch. I want to preserve some mystery. I mean, if you want to know, just ask, and I'm happy to say. But I figure I can leave some surprises. Okay, so this is one that I definitely want to take a note of. So what must be revealed will be revealed. Our order's root is tainted. Its branches flourish. So it's kind of hard to say whether or not, when he talks, our order's root is tainted, but its branches flourish beneath the shelter of the watchman's greater tree. I shall invoke its rights before the chancel, the cruciate, and the road. So if I could find the rights that this is referring to, that might be something related to a secret of the house, may not. But it is one of these things where I wanted to... one of these things that I wanted to make a note of, just in case I got a chance to experiment. Anyways, this is definitely going... I'm actually trying to think what is the best way for me to... Yeah, no, I think this ordering still works. If they were from a book or a craft, you'd be interested to know, but if it came from more esoteric means, I'll wait to see them in the series. There's a combination of them, let's say. So some of them are very mundane. Some of them will be, you know, some of them will be a little surprising, let's say. Oh, also, I forgot to write down the title. My typing has been atrocious today. Okay, I think we're good to do the Carbonate Schism now. The Order of Obliviates on the brink of Schism assembles in a bounds identified only as Carbonek after the Fisher King's Castle of Legend. There, the No and the Long of that order debate their long policy of non-involvement in matters of feather and scale. Now you wish you could watch the series quicker. I guess technically there's the double speed, but I always feel if you need to watch something at double speed, probably the person should be saying half as much. One of their number, the one recording their debates, describes how in desperation he found some kind of solution in a volume of transcendent heresy, but dares not pursue it alone. He convinces a handful of other Obliviates to depart Carbonek with him, while the others cross the sea to Port Noon. In the last few pages, the author reveals himself as the No Adept Ambrose Westcott, writing in an uncharacteristically serious mode. I completely forgot this was one of Westcott's books. Technically, that should actually be going with Westcott's books, but you can see that this would cause absolute chaos in my current organization, so I'm going to keep it there. He convinces a handful of other Obliviates to depart Carbonek with him while the others cross the sea to Port Noon. In the last few pages, the author reveals himself as the no-adept Ambrose Westcott, writing in an uncharacteristically serious mode. He informs any who should find this work that he has returned the book he spoke of to Abbot Geoffrey's secret, where it can be retrieved with certain invocations of the Sacra Lamea. He hopes that one who has read this far and understood this much will find a history to determine. Now, I believe I'm trying. See, the one difficulty I am running into is I'm trying to recall the exact. Actually, if you can just give me a second here. Don't want to pursue heresy alone. Always better to drag others into it. If you can just give me a second here, I want to see. There's another file that I was maintaining. It's not in my spreadsheet, but I might be able to find this thing. I'm not going to spend too much time looking for it, but I might be able to tell you what the I've got my I have most of my notes in this one area, but there was like a small text file of notes before I started carrying, like, keeping something a little bit more normal. And like I feel like I have an idea of where it should be. But now I'm starting to doubt myself. So if you can just bear with me another minute, because I don't know. I think this might be it. So I want to be kind of careful in terms of how I say this, because the more, like, I've run into this now in... Okay, I think I know how I'm going to put this. I believe this is one that puzzled me for a little bit, and I if I'm completely honest, I do not remember... I do not remember which method I used, whether it was that one or another skill. And I don't want to say what the skill is, because it could be. Anyways, when he's talking about Geoffrey's secret, if I am reading that correctly, I believe the book that I got from that was The Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. I can read the book again. I think that one's got a special executioner ending. But anyways, I believe that is the document that is referred to in that particular one. Okay, this is about the Endeavor Club. Again, I'm trying to think of the right order on this. This is the House of Leith. Okay, yeah, no, we've got... we're on to House of Leith stuff now, so... The Serenity of the Blackwood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Sereno Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travels in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign. I think you can actually... I can't remember if there was one in here. Clearly not. Oh, and these are open. That's interesting. There's one closed one here. I'm going to need to think about that. Anyways, the travelers discover they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign. And they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. Okay. Society of the Noble Endeavor. Let's focus on House of Leith. Oh, this is the last one then. Damas